Sup nerds, I'm Tom, and I'm in my tiny little apartment in Georgia, kind of far away from our studio in Florida, so I figured I'd try a new way to do reviews where you just hear my voice, you see some pictures, and you don't see my face. Except you're seeing my face right there, but we're not talking about this game, we're talking about Maglev Metro. I'm going to give you the briefest of overviews, so that way you kind of know, you have at least, an idea about what I'm talking about here without giving you a full how to play. Maglev Metro is a pick up and deliver style train game where you're going to be placing tracks with these see-through tiles, which is really cool because the track for your train doesn't really affect the tracks for the other players, that's pretty cool. You're going to go and pick up and deliver what are meeples that are like robots, and some are commuters. But either way, they're going to be either points or to try and place on your board for an engine building type thing. So you can either make, the actions that you do more efficient, you can have more actions, or you can pick up and deliver straight up for points or for scoring cards or whatever. So it's actually a somewhat complicated game, mixing up some things from different games, and it's a really fun game. I enjoy it an awful lot. I like it a lot, but I don't quite love it. Now, to get into my thoughts here, I'm going to start talking about, there's a decent amount of negative issues that I have with this game. They're all really small, and on their own, they're not that big a deal. Like, if it was only one or two of these things, I probably wouldn't even be saying anything. But there's a decent amount of little things that kind of add up to make the game kind of clunky, and then there's some issues. I feel like a lot of these issues stem from the rule book. Some things aren't super clear. Like, one big issue that we had was that your train is only really, since you're building a subway track, you're really only building one line. Like, it's just one straight line that goes in a direction, it dead ends, and then your train turns around, and it comes back that straight line. You're not going to have any forks or splits or anything like that. Which is, I feel like, not super covered in the rule book. Like, during the section of where they talk about laying track, they talk way too much about, like, removing track, which is something that you can do, but probably aren't going to do all that often, yet they focus on that more than the much more important rule that your train isn't supposed to split. And they focus an awful lot about reversing your train, right? Because if you get to the end of the track, your train automatically reverses for like another action, or if you have extra movement, you're like, I have a move of 3, when I get to the end of my track, I can turn around and keep moving. Well, does it cost a movement point to turn around? It doesn't say that. It just kind of says, if you have extra movement, you can turn around, which is kind of vague. And then there's reverse train is an action that you could choose, but it's kind of hard to explain why it's better to do it as an action. Like, it's only like really towards the end of the game if your train is really, really, really long and you want to, pick up some things and deliver things in a very specific way. It just, that rule can lead to a lot of clunk. And actually, very first game I played, I think we did everything right. It was ironically the second game where, so I played the first game in Florida, and then I moved to Georgia, and it took a couple of weeks for me to actually get the chance to play it again. And I think I messed up that rule because we were definitely playing that wrong, where we had, our tracks were splitting all over the place. However, that's only because we were playing on the other side of the board. If we played on the beginner side of the board, there's that big hub thing where, oh yeah, that actually breaks the rule. You can have multiple things coming out of that one. So and then that's the one you're supposed to start on. So it just even adds more to the confusion. And that still doesn't sound like that big of a deal. That's just one of the minor things. I think what's even worse is that there was another game by Bezier called Whistle Mountain, where I had a real issue where it felt like there was one way to play the game, one strategy that's really strong. And either everybody needs to play that way or nobody plays that way. But, it's a little bit game breaky if one person is playing that way and other people aren't. And here, it's not so much a specific strategy as is like, okay, so you want to start off by building up your engine with that row of robots down the middle and making your actions, your pick up, your drop off and everything, really efficient. And you want to hurry up and you want to do that before you build the other buildings, because robots help you with the engine, and I think they're the commuter buildings or whatever, the red and purple meeples, those are more points. But once you build a building for the red or purple meeples or whatever, they immediately all go into the bag. So it dilutes the bag for those who still want to draw robots and pick up and deliver to build their engine. So it's kind of important to tell people that, listen, you can do pretty much whatever you want, but it does seem like a good idea to really focus on this row of robots down the middle, make your actions more efficient before you bum rush and try and build the purple and red buildings, super fast. You're going to dilute the bag, and that might not be great. It's not necessarily to say that you're going to lose by doing that, but I did have a player once who wanted to focus on getting extra actions first, right? And that took a lot longer than they thought, actually. And then when they, were trying to catch up with everybody else to build their efficiency row down the middle, well, even though they had 3 actions, all their actions were really weak, so it took a while. And by the time they were trying to work on that, other people had built the commuter buildings. So, okay, I'm going to try and refill station I'm going to draw some robots from the bag to put them on the spot, hoping I get some robots that I can actually pick up and deliver. Oh, nope, all I drew was a bunch of purples. Oh, all I drew was purples because, when I go to refill a station, I'm only refilling it at 1 because I don't have the robots to make that action more efficient. Also, that engine building in general is a little slow and clunky. Like, I like that thing down the middle where you have all these different actions and you can build them up, but they're all with robots. But the very first one, so all of these actions are available with a power of 1, with I think like 1 exception. But then the first robot that you put there that will increase the action to a power of 2 is a wild. You can put any robot. But then they start becoming like, okay, we have to put all bronze here, or all gold here, or all silver here, which I guess is necessary because otherwise just all robots are the same and I'll just go pick up whichever ones and just flood the actions that I want, and it's real easy. But then you have to stare at that board a lot more than I would like to, really staring and trying to figure out, well, if I want to move stuff around, which is something you can do, which is cool, well, should I take a silver, or can I even take a silver? Well, I need a gold for here and a bronze for there and a silver for there. So actually, I can't really move things around without sacrificing this one thing right here, which I really need. It's just, and the fact that pickup, capacity, and drop off are all 3 different things just means that building your engine is kind of slow. One last gameplay complaint here is that the cards that you get these scoring cards, which at the very beginning of the game, you can only score 1, but there's a way to fill up things on your board so you can score multiple of them. Sometimes you just get those cards and they just don't feel that great. Like, there's a certain type of card that will give you points for things you have done on your player board. But some of them will be like, you'll get points for not completing this section, and some of them will say you'll get points for completing this section. Well, the one that gives you points for completing the section is always better, because even though it's harder, that you have to actually fill that up. Otherwise, if you get the one that says, oh, you get points for not completing the section, well, just don't ever do it, and then that's card immediately gives you maximum points by not doing anything. Yeah, but you're kind of limited then. It'll say, well, don't fill up the extra action section. Well, cool, that sounds easy, but now I'm doomed to taking 2 actions all game while my opponents could be taking 3 or 4, and now now it's halfway through the game and I'm thinking, oh man, I really wish I have been taking extra actions. Maybe I should do that, but this card is the easiest card for me to score, so I'm sacrificing a decent amount of points to not do that. I don't know, especially if you're only ever going to score 1 card. I don't know. I'm certain there are arguments for or against, these different things. It just, sometimes it feels like your cards are just bad. You know what I mean? Components-wise, the game is pretty awesome, with one pretty major exception of the color choices for the meeples, particularly the robots. Like the red and purple, there's like light red, light purple, and purple. Those are a little awkward, but they're still relatively easy to tell apart. The bronze and gold on the robots are nigh indistinguishable sometimes, in low light and even in regular light sometimes. I'm certain you could mark it or whatever, but it's just, right out of the box, it's like, what? Why? Now, I know that was a lot of negative for a game that I initially said I really, really like, but I do. I really like it. I think a lot of things in here work together well once you get what you're doing. It's like a big hump to get over, but after that, it's really fun. I really like the fact that you can place track without blocking other players. Even though that doesn't mean you're playing like a solitaire game, you still need to worry about, because a lot of the times your tracks do overlap, and you're saying, oh, well, I really want to make sure I go over and pick those guys up before he gets to. The engine building is really fun, especially since you can manipulate the engine. Oh, I'm going to build up track first, and now that I'm done with track, I'm going to move those over to pick up or whatever. And the different ways that you get to score points, the different rows and columns, and especially the card thing is actually really fun, even though sometimes the cards don't feel that great. But, filling up those rows where, the purple and red ones that you're putting there anyways are points, and then you get to score more cards for more points, that feels really good. There's an awful lot of good choices and a lot of fun, especially towards the end of the game when you're not certain when it's going to be over. Am I going to have 2 more turns or 3, or is this the last turn? It can get really tense towards the end of the game. If it weren't for those other things, I would be saying I love this game. I would be saying this is my favorite train game. But right now, I still think Railways of the World is probably my favorite train game. Then this is hitting the second spot. The third spot is probably Whistle Stop, another Bezier game. And then after that, maybe Steamrollers, which is like a roll and write. And that might be like the end of the list. I mean, I also played that Australia, which was pretty good. But I don't know if I would want to put it. Like, the thing is, I don't really play a lot of train games. And the point is, Ticket to Ride is not on this list. So those are my thoughts on Maglev Metro. It's a really good game with some hiccups that admittedly will probably go away when everybody at the table has played before. But, those hiccups are there and we can't just ignore them, so that, it has a couple of dings for those reasons. But either way, I'm going to put a link to this game in the description box down below. There's also going to be a link for Game Toppers, even though I know there wasn't really any pictures with us playing on the Game Topper tabletop, because that's in the studio and I don't have it here, but it's still super good, so check it out. Anyways, subscribe so you never be bored. Bye.